Hey y'all, welcome back. So my name is Sarah. Thank you for joining me here today. I moved from Indiana to Philadelphia in the spring of 2023, and I decided to do things a little bit differently as far as decorating my home. So you guys know that I've been decluttering, and that's very helpful to kind of pare things down to the things that you love the most so that you know what you're working with before you buy furniture and more decor items and things like that. So in addition to decluttering my hobby stuff, my books, movies, I've also decided to declutter my art. Now, y'all know I love a good thrift. I love good secondhand art. I think you can find some really interesting things there. My problem is the art itself is not very expensive. But when you're talking about framing, when you're talking about big pieces, that is when the dollar signs start to stack up. So before I invested in any like custom framing or anything like that, I decided to work with what I already had. So the first thing I did was pull out all of the art that I've been collecting. For the past few months, I've just been buying things that catch my eye and then kind of sticking it in a closet until I had time to kind of go through it and see what I had. This is me in the process of going through everything and seeing how it all looks together in one place at the same time. And I'm not recommending that you do this. I'm just saying this is how my brain works. Y'all know I love movies, and there is no shortage of poster inspiration. Vintage posters, like custom design posters for every film. And I started to build up a collection of these great custom designed posters for different movies that I love. Art by Shasta, I think, is the name of her Etsy shop. She makes these incredible like vintage inspired posters of modern films and some vintage ones too. And so what I decided to do was I pulled all of the artwork that I had out, and some pieces I liked the image. It was like a drawing or a painting or whatever, but the frame was garbage and was only being held together by some pieces of glass and tape. So I decided to go through and kind of rearrange the artwork based on what needed a frame and what I just kind of wanted to move around. So I would take apart the frames and everything and move artwork around in different frames, kind of seeing how they looked with a different frame, like a thinner frame or a thicker frame, bigger, smaller, until I was satisfied with that part of it. So that's what you can see me doing there. It's just, there's no rhyme or reason. I'm not trying to make a gallery wall. I'm just hanging everything up so I can see what they look like together. And that's when I notice themes that I like that pop up over and over again. And me making sure that I'm being very aware of how I feel when I'm looking at the art. Because some things I pick up because I'm just like, wow, that's really unique. But it doesn't make me feel anything beyond that. Like, oh, this is a really unique piece of art. But do I find myself drawn to it? Does it make me smile? Do I feel like calm looking at it? Does it remind me of something else? And that has been my problem. Especially when you're shopping at thrift stores and you're shopping secondhand, you're finding gems all the time. there are anomalies here. There are some things that I picked up in the moment that I thought that I liked, but when I think about where am I going to actually put this and display this, it just did not fit in with other things that were there. So I separated those first before I decided to get rid of them or sell them or whatever. I just separated them from my main grouping. The ones that were absolutely 100%, I love this, I'm keeping it, I'll figure out a way. The ones that I love. So I stacked them all up against the wall and decided that I was going to hang everything just to see how all of the pictures would look hung up on the wall. I know some people like to lean art. They like to lean it on top of dressers or buffets or on top of fireplace mantles and things like that. But I just wanted to see what they would all look like hung up on a wall with like a plain white background. One of the themes that comes up over and over again in the art that I've been finding is nature. I have this beautiful, and I talked about it in another video, this seashell print. Amazing, gorgeous, I love it. I have another print, I think it might be an original drawing, I'm not sure, of a frog. And I love this style. It's just, I think ink and maybe pencil. Love this drawing. And then I found this huge print that reminded me of the Disney movie Aristocats. That's some of my favorite illustrative style is that movie. And this is what happens when you thrift all the time. So I found the print and I loved it. It's like ink splattered and the image is of like an alleyway with like in a city where you have the fire escapes and then there's a small flower, a rose it looks like, and this splash of red, and it's just like speckled with paint everywhere, and I love it so much. That print is from an artist who was a illustrator for the movie Aristocats. That's crazy. Didn't realize that. The frame that it came in was garbage though. And the thing is, the print is so big, I had such a hard time finding a secondhand frame that would fit it, but I did eventually find one. And as you can see, it's very, like, I eyeballed it. I didn't even have my ruler with me, which I should have brought. Like, ruler or measuring tape is a great tip for if you're shopping at a thrift store. Always bring a measuring tape or a ruler. So I found a frame that fit. So that semi-realistic, kind of graphic style is something that shows up over and over again. And something else is tiny things. I had no idea that I was doing this until I started looking at everything and I was like, I really like stuff that's small. So for example, the seashell print is very small, like smaller than the size of my palm. The frog drawing is very small, maybe the size of my phone. That vintage print of the little boy standing in front of the creek with the fishing pole, maybe the size of an envelope. Pretty small prints. And I had no idea that I was collecting them until I realized how many small ones that I had. So some of them I moved into bigger frames. I was like, I wonder what this would look like in a bigger frame with like really wide mat, so that it's framed up really nice. That is one of the reasons why I started moving things around and moving them into different frames, because your frame and the matting that you use can change the impact of a piece of art, especially if it's small. One of my favorite images from Pinterest on one of my boards is this very casual photo, but it's matted with this bright, like Sardinia blue or lapis blue matte, and it just like is pow in your face. You can't look away from it. And while that's not something that I would do, because that is a bit risky for someone like me who is just a beginner in decorating, and I prefer to take safer risks, I really liked that effect and thought that it was a really great idea if you know what you're doing. So here I have all of the prints up against the wall. I like that kind of scribble style art where it can be very abstract with like splashes of color and then just like ink scribbling. You know, that drawing of the frog, it's kind of like sketched out. I really like that style. But a lot of the images that I chose don't have any color. They're in black and white. Like just the ink is black and the paper is more like an off-white or eggshell color. So that was something that I noticed too. In the images that I chose that have color, it's very soft, muted, or there's just like one splash of color in the image. So noticing those things and how frequently that they showed up in the art that I chose was really helpful for me, because in the past when I've tried to put together a display, I was never satisfied with how it looked. I always felt like something was missing, that the colors were not quite right, or the size of things was not quite right. So I wanted to take a more systematic approach to it. So I wanted to get used to seeing them hung up on the wall, how they looked from different angles, like coming in through the door this way, walking this way, walking towards the bathroom, what the effect kind of was. Especially because a lot of the frames that I chose are metallic frames, so very modern, shiny, and they reflect the color of the wall. So seeing those different effects really helped me make a decision for the art that I wanted to put into the frame and where I wanted to position it. Here are some of the styles of art that I noticed that really inspire me consistently and that I reach for. You know how they say that you should shop with your favorite pieces in mind, so that when you come home you don't have totally unique pieces that don't go with anything in your wardrobe? That's how I'm thinking about art. Thinking about what I have and what would complement. I've sort of been doing the opposite. I've been reaching for things that I find inspiring or interesting. And then when I come home, I realize that without even thinking about it, I found art that's a similar style to things that I already have. So I am following those trends in my own home decor, basically, to guide my decisions. Because once I started arranging things, especially putting similar styles near each other, I found that I really liked how that looked together. So I'm just sort of following my own trends to figure out how I want to arrange things and what I think is missing. And bigger pieces of art is definitely what's missing. I have so many tiny pieces of art I know I can put anywhere, and that I can cluster them together or put them individually, especially if I find some really nice colors in a matte for them and have them framed really beautifully. I've seen some really great pictures on Pinterest. I'll make sure to add some here so you guys can see what I mean. But a tiny image can really stand out, especially depending on where you put it and the framing and the matting. So here is my Pinterest board for all of the artwork that's been inspiring me. As you can see, there's way more color here. So here's the before, where I put up everything that I had. I also used this as an opportunity to experiment with going over the edges of the wall, positioning artwork so that it kind of hangs over the edge. And I really liked it. These are some pieces of artwork that were left over that couldn't quite fit on the wall with everything else. And these are all the pieces that were left after I had gone through and moved artwork around and got rid of some of the extra pieces that didn't quite fit. Thank you all for joining me here today. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time.